Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, you gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Cavil, Mike and Charles.
Welcome to episode 88 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU to Asheville, all things HBCU sports for the institutions, large and small, from NAIA to NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts Mike Washington and Charles Bishop of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KQH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Giving a little love to one of my alma maters, Prairie View, today. So I thought I'd make sure I represent a little bit down on the hill, as we like to say. We just got finished with homecoming, as it would have been. So I thought I had a little bit of that homecoming lag from last week, especially since I didn't get all in. Usually I come about this time and I'm still trying to recover, get my bearings back. So I just let the people know Dr. Phil is okay. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. With that, today's show will be a good one as we will be discussing the latest of HBCU sports. Later, we will talk about sports entertainment business side of Black College Sports from the network, BCSN, and HBCU sports coverage with our streaming production producer, Roy Eavins. So we'll get in that a little bit. We'll bring him from behind the screen to actually in front of the screen, and we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about his mindset, how all this came together in a lot of ways, and even more importantly, where we plan to go as a BCSN partner and part of the business platform there. With that, I have Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. And you know, I can call Charles the professor. I'm still waiting on Mike, man. I'm gonna dig into Mike a little bit. He beg to make. He gonna make me go take the test for him or something. I don't understand.
Help, Mike, help.
Master plan.
I need help.
And he's not following through. Yeah, I thought I'd show how to lose. That usually gets him. You know, when I back him into a corner, Mike might, everybody might talk about Mighty Mike and all this, and Little Mike, but y'all don't understand. Put that man in the corner, and you're gonna find out what Big Mike look like. Don't do it.
I know.
What's going on, Mike?
I know you're not calling me out, man. Come on, Doc.
I didn't point in the fingers. God. I didn't point in the fingers. You know, I'm just saying.
Oh man. Oh, so
it's rough. It's rough in the lab.
Nice.
It's rough in the lab. We don't play. I'm gonna let him get his bearings back a little bit. So I'm gonna go to Charles. Charles, give us some news of the day, because he's trying to shake off the cobwebs and everything. He had up to Dallas. He did make sure I was included on the little brotherhood that he went to Dallas. And congratulations on all seriousness, your son lacrosse team in terms of what they were able to do. Undefeated, representing Houston, getting it done, representing the Washington family in terms of that, representing Big Brother as he's playing or will be playing at the collegiate level, obviously, and now he's setting his own mark and continues to do well. So congratulations on all seriousness to you, Mike, in regards to that. I'll give you a chance to talk about it a little bit, and then you can spin it into some HBCU news. But as you collectively come back find a way that you're going to punch back, because I know you will sometime throughout this show. So I'm going to see if I can get it early that I can move on. So I'm going to go to Charles. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dr. Cavil. You know, we're right around the corner from basketball season, and teams are starting to practice now. And we got an email this afternoon. The MEAC, they are to host their basketball coaches preseason video conference. That will be held on Thursday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. This year, the conference will be held via Zoom and will feature the men's and women's head coaches. Each head coach will field questions about the upcoming 2020-21 season, highlighting key returning players and expectations, and previewing both the regular season and 2021 MEAC basketball tournament March 8th through the 13th. So that's hot off the presses this afternoon from the MEAC office in terms of what they're going to be doing with their basketball preseason basketball video conference.
Yeah, no doubt, as we get into it. That'll be fascinating to see how that's going on. Again, it looks like people are moving towards men's and women's basketball. We'll see what that looks like. And we'll get a chance. We got plenty of time to get into that talk. We're still going to get into some other issues, because once we start the sports talk, it's going to be overloaded. So we're going to get in and take advantage of this quote-unquote downtime and make sure we give the framework of all types of HBCU framing that you haven't had a chance to really get into and hear before. So we'll do that. We'll get a chance to share a little more love in terms of what that looks like. I want to shout out to Brother Gerald Joseph, who's always been a brother to me. He's actually recruited me back into the graduate chapter. He's jumped on. He was the first one to jump on today. So I want to give him credit. Brother Joseph, thanks for all that you do for Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and your community. And personally, thank you for what you've done for me to get me back in the fold and just frame myself in regards to what it means to be a leadership in all capacities and be a member of the great fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So with that, let me give some love to some other folks that joined us. Chuck Hunt is always in the house. Monroe, Louisiana, representing.
Brother Hunt.
And he's announcing that he did with his parents. They voted earlier today. So that's good to see that people are out there exercising their voting rights. There is no doubt individual here certainly believe in making sure you exercise your voting rights. Not only that, as members of the fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, those that may not know, I'd be surprised that one of our main campaign was a voteless people is a hopeless people. So as we've come into fraternity, it's always been a high initiative of the fraternity. So with that and just the legacy of my house, which includes, I must say, two men of Alpha Phi Alpha, grandfather and my dad, my father, as well as the great uncle, Big Ben Cavil, member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity.
I was like, Big Ben is there. Yeah.
And so it's been baked in to me for a long time in terms of doing things. And I will say this, because there's a lot of people questioning in regards to party, what does it mean to vote? I heard this from another brother Dr. Carr, in terms of what he said, and it really resonated with me. He said that one of the tools in your tool belt is somebody that talks about me in terms of the liberation of people, and even if you don't see it that far, but you're talking about supporting people, African American people, black people, whether that is in this country or in the diaspora, further engaging that. One of the things that you understand is about the continued struggle. And part of that continued struggle is the understanding voting is a tool in the tool belt in regards of the multiple things that you can do. So exercise all your tools in such a way, whether you are the framework to say to free your people or just in the framework to do better by your people. Either way, it is a tool to help you do that. So I wanted to jump in there and acknowledge that when I got a chance. So we got Willie Alex Hine, John Jenkins, Jalen Riley, Ricky Burton, Andrew Walls, one of our students at Texas Southern University. And for that and all the ones out there, I want to say thank you for your service, Andrew Walls, and all the other members of the military that have served, that including our very own brother Michael Washington in regards to what he does. Don't want to make sure that we say thank you for all that you've done in the commitment to service of this country and your people. Wendy Jenkins Bishop, always finding a way to share love for us We cherish all that you do on the front lines out there, and we really mean that in so many different ways as we continue to see that COVID is doing what it does, no matter what we think we should do. Franklin Nelson, big time Texas Southern University supporter. Lonnie Shaw, always representing for North Carolina A&T. And the Aggies, yes, yes.
How you doing,
Yeah.
Lonnie?
Johnson, Kate Johnson, getting it in for Jackson State. Hello, HBCU Sports Lab. Just wanted to give a lot of people some love. You know, we always get a bunch of love for a lot of people out there, so this is a chance. We don't do this every week. We try to shout out, but this time I'm going to go a little deeper and give a little more people some love in terms of the love that they give for us. Trudy Jackson, AD is in the house. That's AD of Brian and AD Sports Rap, doing it in so many different ways. Kimberly Reynolds, she is the National Alumni Association president. Really doing a
Kimberly,
good job. And my
what's
sister,
up?
Kim Washington, getting it in. Yes. Lonnie Shaw says that big howdy. Yeah, Big Tex howdy. That's what we do. Chuck Hunt.
Did Lonnie say Big Tex?
Contract. Yeah, we're going to get into that. Todd Jackson, another big time Texas University alum, doing big thing. President of their booster club, has really kept pushing that forward. A lot of good leadership in the work that they do for the athletic department over there. Chad Cooper, Garland Malone, just to give some people a shout out. We'll do that. We'll do that. With that, Mike, back to you. Tell us some HBCU news of the day.
I'm still on Lonnie Shaw with the big text. You're going to have to explain to our listening audience where that big text came from, but that's another story for another day. But I'm waiting for you to explain where that big text came from because I love it. So there's news. Following my comrade there, Brother CB, Charles Bishop, fresh from the office of the SWAC. The SWAC announces the Cricket Wireless Sponsorship Extension. So as of 0800 hours for you military, yesterday the Southwestern Athletic Conference and Cricket Wireless had reached an agreement on a 3-year sponsorship that will take it through the year, our Lord, 2023. Man, with this agreement, Cricket Wireless will continue to support all SWAC championship events, community engagement initiatives, along with student scholarship. But wait, there's more. 24 hours later, the MEAC has announced a partnership with Academic Sports and Outdoors to become the conference's official sporting goods and outdoor retailer. So 24 hours, big moves being made in both conferences. So, if you look at the MEAC's deal, it's a multi-year partnership that provides Academy of Sports and Outdoors exposure and fully integrated marketing assets across men's and women's basketball conference championships and events, and especially with the events surrounding the MEAC's 50th year anniversary. So big moves on the sponsorship side in the SWAC and the MEAC.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I'd like to add to that when you talk about that Academy in Sports and Outdoors. They now have sold up, if you would, 4 to 5 HBCU conferences. They have a deal that we first announced, I guess it was a week or so ago. I teased it out on Twitter after I got a piece of that with the SWAC. You're talking about this deal with the MEAC, and it's also come to my attention that they have a deal with CIAA and SIC. So the only one not having a deal at this point that I want to make sure to give some love to is Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. And so I might have to send a little text to Kiki Baker Barnes and make sure that she can put her platform together to see if she can get a part of that in terms of those great institutions down there in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. So it'll be fascinating to see. Congratulations to all of them. That's big news. Congratulations to the SWAC. It's amazing the number of sponsorships they're able to do during this time. You know, there was some question in terms of the revenue sourcing of what that would look like. So the ability to get these deals done for all the conferences, specifically the number that we've seen coming out of SWAC, is fascinating, and congratulations for those being able to get their work done. Remember, we brought the gentleman on, Weber Consulting, that is part of that. So we got to talk to him, and it sounds like he's continued to put in major work, getting it done in so many different ways. So congratulations to him getting that done as we talk about that. We have Syntech Sports Networking, Roy Gillis checking in from Waco, Houston native in a lot of ways, but he was representing Waco and doing a great job. He had the coach on for Prairie A&M University, head football coach, Coach Eric Dooley. So if you get a chance, go check him out. I'm sure he'll give a little plug. Go ahead and in the chat there, put in your information so people can check out that interview that may be interested and didn't realize that it was going on and get in that. Before I go back to you, Charles, we got Glenn Brown, Anita Williams Milton, Dr. Roderick Holmes in terms of getting it done. Congratulations to PVAMU hosting the NCAA Bodo Regional in 2026. Great point. Great point. Thank you for getting that out there. So a lot of love going on there. Joyce Moss Rothman has also given us some love. Wild Mayor Will Marcelin Sincere. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I sure want to make sure I get some love there. He's giving us the A5 sign. So wanted to represent and make sure we acknowledge him. With that, let's go back to Charles. What other news do you have for us?
Sure, let's turn our attention now to Florida Memorial. As Florida Memorial University proudly announces, Siobhan Mansfield will serve as the interim athletics director, and this is notable. She is the first African-American woman to serve as the FMU athletic director. She replaces Ernest Jones, who resigned on Friday. So that's huge news for Florida Memorial. Siobhan Mansfield has 15 years of experience in college athletics and higher education and has worked in all three subdivisions of NCAA Division I athletics. She served as Director of Communications at the League One Association, which represents the athletic directors and programs of the NCAA football subdivision. Before joining League One, she spent 4 years as Communications Director for the American Athletic Conference. She also spent nearly 3 years in the SEC as Assistant Director of Media Relations during a pivotal time of transition as Missouri and Texas A&M announced the creation of the SEC network. And prior to her time at the SEC, she was also the Assistant Director of Communications at the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So, and that comes to us from HBCU Game Day. I want to definitely show the guys at HBCU Game Day some love for this article on Siobhan Mansfield.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's tremendous. Anytime you can be the first, that's a great opportunity and continue to cut down those barriers and hopefully make it easier for the next person to come behind you. Great opportunity. I do remember her days at the Southwestern Athletic Conference, so that's good that she has that opportunity. Wanted to acknowledge, man, the Post is giving out some good news today, man. Giving some great updates as we bring it to them, as they share in the HBCU news today. Willie, Alex Hines says, congratulations to Norfolk State. Behold the green and gold. That's right. To become the first HBCU host a D1 NCAA National Track Championship meet from 2023 to 2026. Yes, that's big. Real big in that, and part of the MEAC. Congratulations to what they're getting done there. We know North Carolina A&T has done and hosted some regional meets, and so that's pretty big time in regards to what's going on there. Continue to show them love. It looks like it's the indoor event that they have there. That's the indoor facility, so we'll check on that in terms of whether that's indoor or outdoor. So that's pretty big news there. Jake Mack is in the house out of Atlanta from Morgan State, representing those Bears, Morgan State Bears, as they do and get it done. Joseph Anthony Goldwyn is in the house. With that, let's go back as we get into it. We're going to jump on here shortly. Let me go back to Mike, see if he has any additional news. And if not, we'll go into, and we're not going to really call this an interview. This is going to be a conversation because this is one of our own. So we're going to spin it a little different for everybody, but I do want to make sure that we do it appropriately as we get into that. But any other news before we jump into this interview as we bring Roy Eavins on the line? Anything else that you want to share, Mike?
I think we can go on forever. We can leave Roy off the line. We don't need him. We don't need that. We don't need that FAMU mess. All right. Now, one more thing. I'm just going to call it prime time. So Primetime has been in the news over the last
I
week.
seen Charles smiling,
what?
so he wanted to make sure somebody
Yeah.
got that in.
We were gonna get that in. Primetime has offered a scholarship to Zach Rice, a junior from Lynchburg, Virginia, top offensive tackle in the class of 2022, according to 247 Sports, and is a 5-star talent according to HBCUGameday and a number of other social media sources. So we want to make sure everyone gets it. In addition, Brazon Ross has decided to commit to Sanders at JSU. This is a 3-star defensive tackle from Las Vegas. He tweeted his commitment on Wednesday. He picked the SWAC school over several FBS offers. So Primetime in the news. Last but not least, Primetime is saying, show me some real soul food. He tweeted, I'm coming through. Show me some real food. And according to all the tweets I saw, if you followed Primetime, all kinds of restaurants, all kinds of folks, home cooking said, come on here, mac and cheese. I'm talking mac and cheese. We can stop right there. Mac and cheese, fried catfish, candy yams.
Mike, do you have an interest in mac and cheese?
I'm sorry. Did you hear me say mac and cheese? Maybe I meant to say mac and cheese.
No, I didn't.
But yeah,
I just wanted to make sure.
Primetime got on. So he's definitely tuning up the exposure, getting the commits. I know Charles is just chomping at the bit. He's licking his chop. I'm sure he has more, but he's got some really good commits that have committed to Jackson State. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the spring and more so in the fall of 2021. But he's definitely making a splash.
Yeah, no doubt.
His contract information came out this past week too. No, I was saying his contract information came out this week too, so I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of conversation about that. So.
Oh yeah, you gotta break down the contract. People got all excited when they seen the money. But I told everybody a long time ago that it was gonna be about $300,000. That was the going rate. Remember when we talked about that? He said, "You said what you think?" I said, "Well, he's gonna be at least at that, and there'll probably be some incentives which takes it to what people had thought or heard it was about $450 based on those incentives." But I knew it was gonna be about $300,000. That's the way of the business. We have several coaches that have hit that mark, and kudos to them. I mean, if you can get it, you're worth every penny that you can get. I certainly understand when I've showed out there in terms of the money that he's bringing to the table in different ways. Exactly.
Somebody just said, "Where your JSU shot glasses?" I got them right here.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's get Roy on here, and as we getting Roy in on the screen, I'm gonna give a couple of more shouts out. The folks that have joined us, R.B. Parker's joining us. Varick Williams, big-time Southern University alum. When I say big-time, he's one of the big ones out there. He does a great tailgate. Rest in peace, his father, where he showed me much love a couple of years ago when we was down there. It was really doing some baseball game, and they tailgate for baseball. I mean, big-time baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really taught me a different level of how you celebrate baseball, and I've taken it back to Prairie View, so we officially tailgate at baseball games too. So,
Roy, what are you wearing?
We coming for the swag, baby.
What are you wearing, Roy?
You know it.
I'm going to do like my friend, and this is in honor of him, Carlos Brown. Carlos, as we say it, Carlos Brown. He has a Saturday show, 10 to 12. Many of the folks know him out there. He's really good. But he says he can't pick between his two biggest rivals, which is either Jackson State or FAMU. But he does acknowledge. He says something about those colors just makes him be like, So, with all that color in there, man. I gotta look close at the camera. I'm like, ooh, no.
Look here. I specifically did not show y'all the jersey pre-production because I knew Mike was gonna have something to say. So we was talking about a homecoming.
we were talking. You said like a homecoming thing, so I'm like,
I'm giving much love.
right. You said something like a homecoming thing, so I'm like, this is the jersey that I'd have on the highest of seven hills in Tallahassee, Florida, at the College of Love and Charity. That is the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. And we would be doing our things at homecoming right now. But gentlemen, it's a definite pleasure. Yes, Mike, we gonna be coming for you, boy. We got some real trash. I can see we gonna have some real trash talking for years to come.
Show me a real homecoming first. Show me a real homecoming first.
You ain't never been. See, we gonna make sure that you're in the crew when we go to Tallahassee. You know that.
Well,
Mike,
I want to see a real
what you
homecoming.
did at the frat house down there when you ran through FAMU.
You done been through that Beta New. You done been through that Beta New house.
That's right. Hey, and hey, let's just say I had to take up the slack for my LBs, but they wasn't too heavy because I walked there strong. I walked out of that house strong and lean and mean, and I was on the FAMU campus, baby.
Yeah, this is good. I know we had to do. Shout out to Tony Daniels, Michael, Road Dog Reed is back in the house. He giving us that's the old OG of them all right there, getting it done. Big time Southern booster and all things HBCU supporter. With that, we have our conversation, as we're gonna call it today. We will talk about the sports entertainment business side of Black College Sports Network, BCSN, better known for a lot of folks, right? And HBCU sports coverage with our streaming production producer, Roy Eavins. So we have everything Roy Eavins in. And as you can tell by now, he is a Florida A&M University alum, FAMU, a big proud rattler, right? And so we're going to welcome him into the lab appropriately. Right?
Strike again.
Fraternity out there. We will not hold that against him. All the fraternities come together, we can joke with each other, but let anybody else say something.
Don't try that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, off campus. Don't want none of that. You don't want none. But they say you want none of that smoke.
Yeah. You want to leave that conversation alone.
With that, let's just jump into it and talk about how you got started, and then we'll come back and see where you're from.
Oh wow. Okay, so back in 1994, I was coming out of FAMU, and myself and Brian Fulford were sitting around talking, and we were like, we're here in Tallahassee. You really don't have much information. Can't find out a lot of stuff about HBCU sports. Along with Roger Harris, who's another A&M alum. And, we were just like, man, there's got to be something out there. And so we did like 6 months of researching as well as surveying and talking to people, man, all across the country who were HBCU alums. And we came to find out that there was nothing out there that could get you information on HBCU sports on a national level. There were a bunch of folks doing things regionally. And we were just like, man, we want to see if we can do something. And so we came up with the concept of the Black College Sports Network. The first 2 or 3 years, we were actually still focused on getting into or onto television. Had some contacts and some opportunities with Florida A&M, some other situations that it came up. We actually had an offer from the fledgling Fox Sports at the time and had set an agreement where they were going to broadcast Florida A&M athletics on Saturday afternoons. We would have Saturday live events from football all the way through men's and women's basketball in 30 top 50 markets. And it was a great opportunity. Some things happened at the last minute that kind of shorted it out, and we were just like, oh man, well, keep moving forward. Don't try to stop. That's a conversation for off camera. We'll tell you about that one. But then we started, at the time I was actually a morning drive time jock for a radio station, and I was also doing some part-time under an alias for a Cox radio station, and started realizing how much they were moving towards the internet. And so I was in the process of trying to make some things happen and just started again doing some research, finding out what the plan was for the radio and television industry moving into the internet, as well as talking about and talking to people in the broadcast industry as far as what was going on. And I started to believe, it's like, wow, this internet thing could be really, really big. and it could have an impact on our programming of what we were trying to do. So at this particular time, I was actually a weekend jock at a station 96.1 in Orlando, Florida, and my production director allowed us to utilize the station studio because they understood the value of HBCU sports, of course, because we were having the Florida Classic in Orlando, so they were very accustomed to the type of impact that it had. So they didn't have a problem with it. Let me air the show overnights. But what we were doing, it was a 2-hour show at the time. We were literally breaking it into 15-minute segments. And so we had 8 15-minute segments that we were uploading to a server, and people had to download it. And they were downloading. We had 1,000 people downloading that show a week for 2 years. And so that was how we got started. And from there, we just moved on to some other things.
Amazing, beautiful, and amazing in a lot of ways. Let me jump back in here and let Charles have a follow-up question.
Sure. You know, Roy, you guys were broadcasting Florida Memorial football games, but one of the questions that I'm sure a lot of people are curious about are just what are the sort of costs that are associated with trying to actually broadcast a football game?
Well, you know, just like with everything, Charles, it's a scale. It just depends on what you're looking for and what people want to do. There's one cost, of course, from a consumer side of you calling me and say, hey, we want you to broadcast our game, as opposed to, you know, our production costs and things of that nature. But then, you know, it's where you want to be and the things that we look at. And, you know, we can, we've literally done productions upwards of $10,000 to $15,000 for particular things. That is not our norm. That was a high end one. And we've also done them as low as like $2,500 for things. And so, you know, again, it depends if it's a one-off, if it's just one game and you say we want to do something, or if it's something, you know, long-term that we look at doing as well.
Sure.
That's great to know for a lot of people out there. Go ahead, Mike, follow up.
Yeah, Roy. It's really hard for me to look at that jersey, so I'm trying to look off and look back, you know, just to, you know, limit my exposure to a hazardous substance because, you know, I'm in the chemical industry. So, with all seriousness, congratulations to you. Here's my question. I want to put my business hat on, and you know, black college sports has received limited coverage. So when you look at it, you know, on the national landscape, you know, is there a market? Is there money to be made? And if so, what is that market, and what does that earning potential look like?
Okay, well, I'm gonna make sure I do this specifically for you to put me full screen so that you can get the full view of the jersey while I'm making this answer for you. But no, we you know, yes, there is. There's no doubt that there's an availability to it. I mean, we talk about the opportunities. You look at you know, Jackson State leading attendance in the FCS for a long time. You've got the Division II conferences between the SIAC and the CIAA have been leading Division II attendance literally for 30 years. So, you know, that shows us that at our level that we are the most profitable thing outside of the Power Five. And, Doc, you and I have had this conversation, and I tell people all the time, I said, when you think about it, think about what ESPN does. You know, once you get past the Power Five, you don't have any other conferences that have the earning potential that the black colleges have. Why? Because you're talking about over 100 years of tradition in these fan bases. We have 5 generations, you know, 5 to 7 generations of family tradition going back. And I'm sure Charles can attest to this, being from Jackson and being in Jackson State. That when that happens, that gives you the ability to bring people to games. If you really look at these FCS conferences, remember, a lot of those conferences just started popping up in the last 30 years. You know, these are conferences that have just come along, these schools. Some of these schools in different cities, you know, had the opportunity to expand and to grow during certain periods in our country, and so now they're doing it. But you're looking at teams that only literally are just finishing their first generation of true fans. You know, some of them may have two generations, and we're using the generational number at 20 years. where they're following these teams. So, you're talking about a potential. We travel to games. We talk about it. The classic model is, ironically, and I don't think a lot of people have paid this close attention to it, but if you look at the classic model that we have had for generations, again, that is what ESPN uses to do their other bowl games. That whole premise behind it, those lower bowls, if you look at it, they're attempts at being classic games. And so I think the earning potential is, in the millions, if not the hundreds of millions. I'm not going to say we up in the billions as of yet, but there's certain things that are going to have to happen to that. I think one of the core pieces, and Doc, again, we've had these conversations, is pulling together a cohesive unit of that happening. That is the big difference, because the thing that separates us from the Power Five, the only thing that separates us is the dollars and resources that they have had over hundreds of years. When you have a stadium that seats 100,000 and you've got another 70,000 people on the waiting list for season tickets, that's a revenue stream that you just can't compete with. And so that, that's where we have to do that, but we have to be able to maximize where we are. And I think those of us who are in the industry coming together and providing a space for that to happen on a regular basis is where that's going to make its big impact.
No doubt about it. I think Charles had a follow-up question, so I want to let him jump in here, and then I'll ask the question after that.
Well, yeah, and I'm curious. Are there things that athletic departments can do, especially with their fan base and their growing fan bases, to pull those eyes off of the 2:30 CBS game? Or Doc and I talk about it all the time. We're so immersed in HBCU football that we're watching games from Aspire through whatever network from 11 in the morning through 7 at night, and you kind of lose track of whatever is going on with the Power Fives. But I love it. What is it that athletic departments can do in terms of promoting their product?
Well, Charles, I can't give too much of that away because those are the things that we're trying to tell them that we can do for them. But no, and part of that, though, in all seriousness, again, it's about a cohesive product. It's about being able to look across the board and engage with folks who want to do that. One of the other things, like the thing that actually prompted me to start this company, being from South Florida, I was talking to somebody and they were like, well, who's your favorite college football team? And I said, FAMU. And they were like, well, no, we mean real team. And I was like, excuse you? I'm like, I'm concerned with FAMU and the schools that they play, the HBCUs. And so we knew, I was under the thought process that I cannot be the only person who feels that way about HBCU sports. And so that's why, like I said, we literally took 6 months. I think we surveyed over 3,000 people, man, across the country who were HBCU alum, and as far as their allegiances and how they felt about the football stuff. And that's one of the things that we've been trying to get the athletics departments to understand, that the desire is there, but you have to find a way to make that thing cohesive. One of the challenges that we've had, and we've had people come to us about, is like, hey, we were watching y'all games look great, then we turn to somebody else's thing, and, we seeing too many pictures of the grass and missing the plays. And, so people have to get, one, it has to be a cohesive unit. But two, and the biggest thing about this is that, and this is a shameless plug at this point, people like ourselves have to be given a little bit more opportunity. See, we're the guys who are talking about y'all 7 days a week. We're not into the sports show that talks about that FAMU had a game, and after they've spent 15 minutes talking about Florida State and Tallahassee. We're the ones who lead with FAMU, who end with FAMU, and your market, and we do that for you. So we have to be given those opportunities to get to people. I tell you, one of the quick things I tell people, COVID has actually been great for what we're doing. If you don't believe that, because one of the things that it's done is that it's forced some of our schools to catch up to technology. We've been trying to get people to do Zoom interviews and Skype interviews and literally for 7-8 years, and people are like, man, I don't know how to do that. So that has been one of those things. But giving people like yourself, giving people like Keisha Kelly and the Black College Experience, I would be remiss if I did not shout out Eric Moore and Luke Williams. I call Eric Moore the godfather of HBCU sports coverage, and he was doing this thing on the internet before all of us got even anywhere near the internet with Onadan and things like that. So, you've got to continue to give us those opportunities to cover the programs. Make your coaches available to us. Coaches, win, lose or draw. You got to give us 3 to 5 minutes. Talk to us. People want to hear that. The same things that you see in your Power 5 conferences, in your NFL and your pro sports, we're trying to do all of that for you. But if we can't get to your coaches and your administrators, it makes it much more difficult.
But okay,
Go ahead, Mike. Jump in there. It's good.
yeah. Let me ask another question. And yes, you talk. We do have a hardcore, hard niche group of fans. But one of the things I've talked with Doc about is getting the casual fans, which is a wider audience, engaged into not only the activity of games, but all of the cultural aspects of black college football. What is your perspective on that? Because I have mine, but you've been in this longer. What is your perspective for fans? Because we know who's who, who's what. We know statistics, we know facts, we keep up on a week-to-week basis. But there are those fans who are like, hey, what's FAMU doing nowadays? Or and maybe they're corporate representatives that I work with. Then they're like, how do you engage those folks to get them plugged in?
Well, that's the whole part of having access to the programs. Then we're able to do those other kind of things, because that's one of the major things. You definitely mentioned it. HBCU sports is much larger than the game. It always has been.
Right.
And we're not talking about just at the classics or just at homecomings. That's every experience. And so that's part of what we're going to be doing. We have a show that we've developed. Hey, listen, there's no shame in admitting it. It was developed as a version of College Game Day that ESPN does, but ours is different. It's called the BCSN Game Time Show. You'll be seeing a scaled-back version of it coming this spring, as we will have a lot of activity going on. But it does. That's one of the things that we do as a network as well, is that we engage the entire HBCU family when it comes to game day. So we make it a point. Every week you'll always see something talking about not just the athletic programs of, say, Jackson State, but we're going to talk about their top-tier academic programs. We're going to talk about their band. We're going to talk about what campus life is like. We've got, we're anticipating having students from every campus do that kind of thing. Give people tours of the campus while they're watching our broadcast so that they can get the experience. I think there's one thing, and this is especially in a time such as today, one of the things that we are going to be really heavy on is pushing that feeling that when you are at an HBCU, it really is like family. And I think as we hear, and as more people hear that, there has to be a tick to it. There has to be something that switches on and that tells them, it's like, hey, I need to check this place out. Let me see some things. There have been two trends that I've been seeing, or really it's one trend, but I have been seeing a lot of D1 athletes transfer for graduate studies at HBCUs over the past few years. And it's, it's ironic because who are these? When I looked at it, of all of the kids, I probably saw like 7 or 8 of them do it over the course of 2 seasons, just at one particular university. And all but 3 of those kids, they had ties. Their family had gone to the HBCU. And they just decided to go to another school. And they all said the same thing. Man, I had so much more fun here than I did, at the other program. And so, it is definitely getting and engaging that entire culture that is the HBCU sports.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We are talking to the co-founder, if you would, of BCSN with Roy Eavins, Black College Sports Network. Just talking about his history of starting up the business, but now we're going to transition. We're going to show you just how talented he is. We're going to go in just to talk about some of the news updates talk a little more about that. But the last question I have before we get into that, and we get back into some more of the news and get you back into what we do on the show is just providing dialogues and different perspectives. But I did want to take a deeper dive back on the question that you had started to talk about a little bit, and we engage, as you said, off the record and really take a deep dive. And as we said, we have some special things that we believe that we're working on to bring to this broader family, and one of the reasons we decided to collaborate. One, to show the world that African-American men in particular, but people in general, black people can work together and can have successful independent networks and businesses that they forge and create a partnership in and outside of what they do on their own. So that was one that we purposely decided to work on this, not only because we thought there was synergy there, but we wanted to provide a framework. But with that said, when you look at that, obviously we are extremely aware of Aspire TV broadcast with the SIC and CIAA Sports, more of the CIAA, if you would, in a lot of ways. Obviously we know about Aspire TV. We just had No Huddle on last week with Tolly Carr in terms of work he did there. But at one time, obviously, you saw a big play for BET. You had NBC that actually ended up going out of business. NBC, people may remember that network. TV One is a black network on. But we know that the SWAC and the MEAC can partner with the ESPN. I'm not saying that we have to leave one or the other, but you're probably aware of the fact that when these contracts were first negotiated, they were negotiated as exclusionary contracts, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Meaning that all the rights went to ESPN. And anybody that's been in this business, and as I teach students now with my joint partnership, appointment, I should say, at Texas Southern University in the School of Communication, when we look at sports entertainment, that side of it, versus what we talk about on the sport business management side of it, or working in there in a broader perspective. But I teach purposely people to understand that when you go in these contracts and you see what is happening at SEC with their network, right? With the ACC,
yep.
Most recently their network, the history that you've seen with Big Ten with their network they're doing, and obviously with Pac-12 and even the Big 12 in regards to specifically University of Texas and the Longhorn Network. They have negotiated these tiering processes where they didn't sign exclusionary deal, and they have found a way to break down their TV contracts where you have first rights. And so people are clear on this to get a picture for those that may not have heard me talk about this or intrigued about the entertainment, the networking, streaming, or over the television part of this, or even radio. You have your first rights, right? And that's what you see originally when, for example, the SEC did a deal with CBS.
Right.
They signed their rights over and they just did their first rights to CBS, meaning CBS would get the game of their choice on Saturday and they could play that game. Then they signed secondary rights where they signed a multi-television deal with ESPN to let ESPN pick their second, third, and fourth game if they wanted for their network, right? Mm-hmm. And then they would have a third deal where they would let regional networks do that. And most recently, they bought all those rights back from the institutions doing their own thing or the regional networks, and then they signed what they call their tertiary rights, the third rights. And those third rights they brought all the way back to the conference, and then they sold those rights in a network deal to ESPN to help them create the network, similar to what you saw with Longhorns doing it as an institution. They did it as a conference, and they all of a sudden have the SEC network. We saw that with Fox Sports, with the Big Ten. We saw that now with ACC and the secondary ESPN network deal they had. Why is it important for HBCU conferences, and I'm hearing that the SWAC under Dr. Charles McCullen is looking at this, when this contract was over, make sure that they don't sign an exclusionary deal again, that they sign a tiered deal so they can have multi-levels in regards to how people can see the games that they may see of their choice, especially now the conference has expanded to 12 teams with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman.
Right. Well, ironically, Doc, when you talk about this, I remember when the first contract was signed, and the irony of that situation is that when they signed the first contracts for the MEAC, the SWAC, the SIAC, and the CIAA actually at the time had a separate contract. We had been streaming HBCU sports online for 6 years at that point when they did the first contract. So ironically, when they did the first exclusionary contract or exclusive contract, we were given an exception for that and had the opportunity to still continue to do games because apparently it was something about the way that it was set up is that you cannot take something away from me that I was already doing because of the way from it. But that's the major key. The challenge that we've had with the HBCUs, which I really don't understand. At this point, I definitely don't understand it because you have to look at it from the sense of knowing, again, the last 30 years, our conferences have led everything under Division I or under FBS in attendance, meaning that our fans will show up. So that should tell you that at the same time that there are probably going to be a lot of fans that can't show up to the games, but who will watch them on any platform that they have access to. So as you're looking at this and you're putting these games out there, and somebody made a comment, I wish I could see who their name was because that was one of the things that aggravated me the most when they did start doing some of the renegotiations, and they were tape delaying games that they're putting on the internet. We had not been getting that coverage because basically you have given ESPN everything. You told them, okay, you take it and you do what you want to do. And so that was the problem. And I don't think the people who were necessarily in power really understood the value of HBCU sports at the time because they could have been a lot further along. We could have had a lot more things in place, I think, if those people at the top tier of ESPN or ESPN3 or whatever it was, I think it's ESPN Plus now, if they had realized, 10 years ago, man, if we put these HBCUs on, you're going to start getting more attention. And so, that's the piece to it. Having these games when someone has all of your rights, they were looking, you're talking about for the entire MEAC conference, I think they played or they aired, at one point they were literally only airing 12 games a season. And they had all of the content for football. For basketball, they may have been doing 15 games, but that's for all of the games for the entire conference. The things that were frustrating us immensely was that we couldn't even get volleyball games, baseball, and softball because ESPN had the rights, and they weren't even showing any of those live. They weren't even showing any of them until the championships. So you've got all except 3 of your sports aren't being broadcast. So nobody's seeing them. And so that's another thing, like I said, that we're losing, that we have been losing out on, is that we're not getting the exposure. We're not just football and basketball. Those are not the only athletic programs. And so being able to show all of those students and those student athletes would be amazing. And again, that's one of the things that we focused on. We are one of the few networks, and honestly, I don't know if anybody else is doing it from a network perspective, that actually shows volleyball games. We do, the women's sports. We're getting into all of the other sports. We interview and talk to all of the coaches on a weekly basis when we're in with the program. So, that Doc, that's it. It's just having the access to be able to do what you do now and to not leave out the content. Was always amazing to me. And to give an example again, of course, we were talking about HBCUs, and when we first started doing this, we were and it was just us and ESPN doing live streams of HBCU football games. We were the only ones showing halftime. And it's like, you don't do an HBCU game and not show halftime. I'm like, come on, ESPN, what are you doing? So, but again, that's just people knowing the content, knowing the clientele that they're dealing with.
Well, Channel 2.
Great point. I'm glad that you explained.
Yeah, the only other station I said, Channel 2, when the State Farm Classic, or the State Farm was sponsoring the Bayou Classic, they would show a snidbit, 15 seconds of halftime. But again, like as you said, they could have monopolized off of that event, which is tremendous in the HBCU diaspora. So,
Great point. As you're breaking it down, and we got a lot of people that are really shining and jumping on here and really giving their thoughts. I did want to give a shout out to Garland D. Malone. He was the one that you were referencing and posted on there about ESPN games need to be live, not tape delayed, or ESPN Plus. And so they're doing both live and ESPN more live on Thursday, taped on Saturday. I know for a fact, I can give you an update from Dr. Charles McCullough, the commissioner of the SWAC, that he's in earnest in regards to, as he talked about when he made this move with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman deciding to join the SWAC, that is one of the things he's looking at. And he is looking at, I will say this, there are other networks that have came on board that saying they have an interest. So it's going to be fascinating to see over the next couple of years what this looks like as people have become more educated in terms of what's going on there. Curtis Simon, who was the VP of BET and responsible for broadcasting HBCU games, he did that big game, and I've worked with him. He actually is the brother-in-law to the former dean of the College of Education at Texas Southern University. They both went to Central State. And just to give appropriate comments on that, Dr. Jay Cummins is the brother's name. That actually was the impetus of me getting my contract at Texas Southern University to begin my academic foray into education and sport management. And look where we are now, this close to having our first HBCU with a concentration in sport education. And this is after starting the BS in sport management, MS in sports studies and sports leadership. So you never know where these small things come together. And the relationship I had with Curtis is I got a chance to go to Bahamas and learn literally behind the scenes and the deals that he did to put that together in terms of and what he's working out about creating a streaming network. But he actually had to go buy the rights from ESPN to get the secondary rights because they were exclusionary. So that just lets you know how much power they got to have because they were only showing one game. He wanted to show more games. And he went in there and negotiated those secondary rights. But he didn't do it with SWAC or MEAC or SIAC.
He had to do it with ESPN.
Who just dropped it. He had to go to ESPN because they had the exclusionary rights. So I just wanted to put a pin on that
and Doc,
to let people understand that whole framing.
And let me say something real quick to you.
We got a couple of minutes there, and I'm going to let you say something. We got a couple of minutes. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're coming up on the hour, so we're going to drop this show, close up on this, and then we'll bring in our second guest that's going to opine a little more about this to give us more of a diaspora feel of what HBCU's connection, and many of us just see African Americans, but I want to go beyond that. We did that with the Caribbean a week ago when we brought in Gotti Warema talking about the connection there, and now we're going to even go into Africa and Ghana in particular. But go ahead, last comments here, if you would share with it and wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to make a point about what you were just saying. You know, one of the things that I've been trying to get the HBCUs to understand is that you can utilize companies like ourselves, you know, like I said, Black College Experience, HBCU Game Day, and all these other folks inside HBCU Sports Lab. The conferences and the schools could actually leverage who we are. Because there's one thing that everybody has to remember. Guess what? ESPN3 and us, we're actually on the same exact internet. So it's not a special internet that they're on. They're on the same space that we are. And we have something that they're never going to have for you, which is a true passion and a love for your product that we can then send out to everyone else. And that is what shows through. You know, and like I'm going to give one quick example. When they did, I think it was the Celebration Bowl, and they took Tiffany Green out of the box and put her on the sideline. I literally turned the game off. It was like, how you going to take Tiffany off? And she's been play-by-play your entire season on the broadcast, and you bring some guy in that doesn't even know the schools. You know, and I'm not talking about the fact that he was Caucasian because, listen, we've had Caucasian players at FAMU. You want to get, but you take someone who's a seasoned veteran who's been leading your broadcast the entire year, and you pull them off, and you don't think that impacts how people look at what you do and what you really consider as far as our value. So yeah, no, we're on that same internet, but we're a home, that we're not gonna give you the crumbs. We gonna fix you a big plate with cornbread and collard greens on it, and you get to eat and fatten yourself up with all of it.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's Thanksgiving
Good
is around
stuff.
the corner. I think
Yeah.
he just got a lot of it. I did, I done put on a couple of pounds just listening to that. So I'm gonna have to go on the treadmill tonight, boy. I tell you, you do it to us all the time. With that, this is Dr. Cavil inside HBCU Sports Lab. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll be joined by Professor Nana Asare. We'll have Roy Eavins stick around and be able to come back in because we're going to talk about the expansion and what that means and that kind of look. But we did want to tune off as we close out the show on the terrestrial KCOA.
Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself.
As we talk about Roy Eavins striking again, we want to say thanks to Ralph Cooper, the Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Give us a couple of minutes and we'll be right back as we tune off from KCOA's 12:30 a.m. From our live terrestrial station. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We have Professor Nana Asare. As you see, that's Nana Asare. Asare Athletics, Asare Sports, as he brings it back and forth. He is a colleague of mine. He's a professor at Texas Southern University. He is all things to many different people. And I'll let him go a little deeper than that. But I know him as a professor of sport management. He also teaches kinesiology, health studies, multifaceted, multi-talented, but we have him going to talk a little bit about sports, all things, expansion, legal frameworks, if you would. That's his specialty. And really what I wanted to talk about, that he has a unique framework of the global connection of HBCUs. And I want us to get beyond this thought process that HBCUs are in the South. Obviously, a lot of us understand we move and we're around the U.S., but even more than outside of the military, where you think of us globally, HBCUs and experience and the name firm has a long history. This is not something that started recently. There's a long history of the connection of HBCUs and Africa and the countries within the continent of Africa. So we wanted to go there a little bit, tease you and always continue to educate you in so many different ways. And you know how we do it, just to give you that perspective. Welcome to the show, Dr. Nana Asare. Before I give you a chance to tell a little bit about yourself, what did you think about the show this afternoon thus far?
Great program, gentlemen. I want to congratulate you guys for putting on a great discussion topics and allowing covering such a wide range of topics, first and foremost, which is very difficult to do in such a short period of time. But I also wanted to thank the gentleman that spoke earlier. Welcome, FAMU, to the SWAC. We promise to give you a very tough time. Welcome to the SWAC. As a former SWAC football player and track athlete, I'm very much so looking forward to not only having FAMU, but also Bethune-Cookman. So I played with a lot of guys that were from Florida, so I think this is great timing to have two new entrants to the SWAC. We also obviously want to congratulate fraternity brother and former athletic director and Dr. McClellan and all the wonderful works that he's doing with the SWAC as the SWAC commissioner. So we definitely want to give him kudos there as well.
You see, he had to throw that in there. First one,
Yeah.
5 days to 6 fraternity.
Wow.
Now I cap out the South fraternity. I don't know.
So you throw that little gap in there.
I caught that.
No, but much love. You did that appropriate. That's a nice little touch. I like it. I told you, brother.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you guys this evening.
Thank you. Let's jump in there and tell everybody where you're from, and your connections that we talked about globally, and then we'll get into what that means in some of the from that global perspective.
Absolutely. So my name is Nana Asare, Professor Nana Asare. I'm a two-time graduate of Texas Southern University. I played football and ran track at Texas Southern in the 90s, so 96 to 2000, 2001. And so HBCUs are near and dear to my heart, obviously. In addition to that, I've been able to teach other institutions such as Long Island University in Brooklyn, where I got a lot of exposure to the Harlem history of Harlem, and so much of it that I didn't understand, from Malcolm to Garvey to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to W.B. Du Bois. My neighbor, believe it or not, while I was living in Harlem, was the late great Maya Angelou. So lots of history there, but I'm so grateful that now at this particular age I can appreciate that. At the time I did not, but certainly hoping to share some of that story about the HBCU involvement. And I come from Ghana, so my parents, my whole entire family are from Ghana in West Africa, and obviously Ghana has been in a lot of the news over the last 2 years as part of the year of return, the diaspora, the movement to call all of the African diaspora back home. We've seen the pictures and the videos of the celebrations that have been going on, people that are going on for tourism, people that are going on for cultural connections, changing their names, some that are moving there, buying homes, buying property, the engagement of African American business owners and Africans coming together to buy property and build together. Some fascinating stories that are coming out of the continent right now. And so we're encouraged by all that. In fact, some of that history, as you stated before, ties in very well with the HBCUs, simply because the first president of Ghana actually went to HBCU in Lincoln University. Many people don't know that. Not only that, the first president of Nigeria is also a graduate of Lincoln University. And so those two were there at the same time. And Mike, I think you would be very pleased to know that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was actually a member of Phi Beta Sigma. A lot of people also don't know that.
Yes, I did know that, gentlemen. I was going to make that point if he didn't lay that out there, but yes, he is a member of Phi Beta Sigma.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of connections. And one of the things that
minor
go ahead,
facts
Mike.
and details. I'm sorry, just minor facts and details.
And I will also say this: I belong to a Greek forum that's on the motherland. We call ourselves the D9 on the motherland, and there are so many wonderful things that D9ers are doing right now. I would be remiss to not to give them a shout out. Building boreholes, starting a project where a doll project where they're donating toys to certain communities so that the children of that community can have a better reflection of themselves, of what true Black beauty means, and so forth and so on, at a very young age, as opposed to being used to just Caucasian dolls and whatnot. There's just so much that is going on right now, and I will share some of that as much as I can. I tend to talk fast. I'm so excited to be here, so I'll slow it down. Doc, this is your program. Wherever you want to take me, that's where we're going.
No, that was the perfect introduction that we wanted to create that connection that sets the groundwork that many people now will understand the importance of the global aspect of HBCUs. And as Roy talked about earlier, understanding the media and the connection of sports, understanding that global perspective of what that looks like creates a broader network of individuals that want to be connected to the HBCU culture, as I call it, in this case, the sporting HBCU diaspora. And so now people are getting an understanding as I use the words over and over so people can get used to saying it. Now they're starting to understand what it means when I talk about that global diaspora. And it even is beyond the language, Anglophone, as you talked about, and whether it's Francophone or Spanish, when you talk about these African diaspora from the Caribbean, Brazilian to Brazil, in terms of what that means, even going into Portuguese and then back into Africa, when you talk about this global connection and strategy of how that means of understanding what it means to bring institutions, right? When it boils down to what does it mean to build institutions, because the only way that you're going to collectively be able to deal with some of the problems we have, not just in the United States, but global, is understanding that global connection. So we're using sports as a vehicle to talk about that and connect it uniquely from that perspective. No. With that, let me let Charles jump in here and ask a follow-up question. And then Mike, and then we'll dance and we'll get into a little more of what we're talking about in this conversation as we have another 20 minutes to go.
Well, and one of the beautiful things about this program is it really is like sitting in a classroom in terms of sitting back and learning. So, Dr. Asare, by all means, to bringing that global connection into the forefront, talk about some of the things that you see from your perspective.
Yeah, so the history of this, the connection and the diaspora is so powerful. Sometimes I get goosebumps just even think about it. So I mentioned earlier the first president of Ghana being Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who is known as one of the fathers or the forefathers of Pan-Africanism, which ties into all of everything that we see with the red, black, and green. Well, the gentleman was so fascinated with the teachings of Marcus Garvey, right? So he was essentially a Garveyite. He learned about Marcus Garvey and Marcus Garvey's teachings as he graduated from Lincoln University and went to go live in New York, Harlem specifically, learning about the cultures there. So he saw the plight of the African American. He saw the history of abuse of the civil rights movement just at the beginning, before the introduction of the Malcolms and the MLKs and the so forth and so on. He was so heavily influenced by the Garveyite movement that when he returned back home to Ghana in the early or late 50s, he actually ran for president. Obviously, we know the history of him becoming the first president of Ghana, but more interestingly, his involvement in sports in the country. This is so fascinating. So Dr. Kwame Nkrumah not only laid the foundation for all the national teams, all the sporting, including football and track and field, which we call athletics back home. He named the team the Black Stars after the original Black Star line, which was founded by Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So that was his ode to the Pan-African movement. And till this day, the Black Stars are known as the national team of Ghana is known as the Black Stars. The female team is known as the Black Queens. And then there are some other subgroups all the way down in terms of the youth teams that are all sort of leading into what he set forth earlier. The other important distinction here with HBCU sports and a tie-in is that obviously we know that soccer is real big on the continent. And at one point, Dr. Cavil talks about this all the time. Howard University was one of the first, if not the first, HBCU to win a national soccer title. So now we're starting to see all of these, sports global phenomena of players and player transactions. Lionel Messi was reported to have a $700 million buyout from Barcelona if he wanted to leave there. We're starting to see so many international players that are coming from that particular arena. And I tie that into saying that if HBCUs really want to take a different approach in terms of having an impact with sports such as soccer and more specifically track in the Caribbean, the recruitment is definitely there. The groundwork has already been laid. When we look at programs such as the business schools, when we look at pharmacy, when we look at law schools, when we look at these pre-med programs, a lot of the students that are in these programs tend to come from, believe it or not, the African diaspora. Here in Houston, for example, the Nigerian community is one of the largest student population when we look at immigrant populations at Texas Southern University. And what do they study? They study pharmacy, they study nursing, they study business, and they study law. These are the 4 areas. And so I see this as a way, as a recruitment tool, right, for us to be able to say, hey, you know what, you can get a great education at the HBCU, and you can also contribute into the athletic space, and then also bring the cultural awareness that we all are dying and waiting to see more and more of.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Jump back in there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
And then we'll let Roy
Dr.
ask a follow-up question. Go ahead.
So, Dr. Asare, I love your passion and thank you for coming on the show so much.
You're very welcome.
We talked about the sports impact, but as you know, the HBCU diaspora has a tremendous and unique cultural aspect. So can you take us through the current relation of how we celebrate? Take a homecoming, take a classic, take any event, take how we celebrate that and tie it back to Africa or the Afro-Caribbean, because I can think of several examples, but I'd like to hear your perspective as well.
That's an excellent question. So, just so that you guys would know, the audience would know, as I told you about the year of return in 2019, I actually have a travel and tourism company called Royal Diaspora Group, which was launched in January of last year in anticipation of the year of return. We were able to take two different travel groups, African American professionals from Houston, from Tampa, and Dallas, all the way into Accra, Ghana, where we toured 4 cities. And with that experience, they got to see the rhythm of the country. When we walked from the airport, as soon as we walked outside the airport, they were greeted with the rhythmic drums, all right, of a welcome, of a kwaba,
Not the
of
drum
our
line.
local yes. So we are a rhythmic people. This is what we do. The sister turned to me, one of the sisters on the trip turned to me, and with tears in her eyes says, "This is home." And I said, "Indeed, this is home." This is what we do. So to tie into the question of celebration for us, the gentleman previous in discussion was talking about the halftime shows and that culture. Again, if you are trying to sell that as a brand and you're not tapping into the music, the culture, the fraternities and sororities, the other organizations that contribute to the liveliness of HBCU art, whether it's the athletes and the artists, there's so much entertainment that is happening. And a lot of that is also tied in to the continent as well. For example, Afro beats right now is one of the largest selling musics right now going on. You look at artists such as Davido and Wizkid and Stone Boy and so many others that are coming and fusing it with also not only with hip hop, but also with reggae. I see that as an opportune time to also showcase some of that talent as well. So now we're talking about maybe having international games that are now featuring both cultures, or having a what is it called, a step show, or perhaps even a battle of the bands during an international game, which has never occurred before. And I think this is something that would really open up eyes, not only here in the U.S., but also back home. This is the time where I think the collaboration between both the African Americans and also those in the African diaspora, especially those that are here in the United States, we need to bridge that gap. And so as part of my work, not only in the classroom, but also in the community and also in business, this is what I've been striving to do. And we've got some success stories in doing so, but I think there's so much more work to be done. So I look forward to chatting with you guys. If you guys have any recommendations, or if you are ever in need of cultural groups, dance groups, whether you need an artist or a musician, whether you need any form of entertainment, sort of to segue the importance of that, right? Dr. Cavil and I talked about an international friendly match that I'm working on, and I threw out this concept, and I said, imagine a scenario where you have an HBCU band perform at the halftime show.
Time out.
We can't.
I'm sitting here waiting like.
You got my email. Yeah, shut the mic, drop the mic. Go ahead, Roy. Ask the question.
Well,
we're going to keep that, we still our business. We still consulting.
Yeah, Professor, we got to hold off. Like I said,
you can't do everything. You can't do everything.
Just like when Charles asked me that question, you got to be like, some things you got to hold on to because they come with a cost. So, yeah.
There you go.
But, you know, one of the things that I have actually been a proponent of and have been saying for years is I don't understand why the HBCUs are not involved in soccer/football as a way to pull in international students and to get more international students engaged in the universities. And we know that there are a lot of other aspects that go along with this process. But being someone, from Ghana and from the motherland, how do you see that being an opportunity for the HBCUs to really grow themselves by reaching out to the diaspora from that, specifically as it relates to, say, the soccer situation?
That's another fascinating question. So I don't know if people have realized this, but over the last 20, 25 years, a lot of the D1 and D2 schools have actually been recruiting out of West Africa. They do so because they know there is excellent talent. For example, the California schools, the Virginia schools, a lot of them have been recruiting out of that particular area. And they've been doing so at not only at the college level, but also at the high school level, where they're offering scholarships in order to develop their program. So that pipeline has already been created. Now, when it comes to HBCUs, there's an opportunity not only to grow sports such as soccer or football, but also track and field, because these are the two that a lot of African students that come to the United States are participating in. We can't even, that it's a whole nother discussion if you want to talk about the influence of the brothers from Nigeria in terms of the NFL and also the SEC and whatnot. You're starting to see a lot of dominance, especially at the defensive positions, right? And so there's so much to be discussed there. But to answer your specific point, I think if there was a platform where both male and female sports at the D1 level was introduced at the at SWAC, we already have that for the not for the SWAC, for the HBCUs. We already have women's sports, but I think men's sports would also be a huge asset at this particular time for the reasons that you mentioned, for recruitment purposes, and also for to be able to market a lot better. Because these students, when they finish these programs from high school to the other D1s, they end up going professional. So that is another storyline that could be told. A lot of them are entering the professional world through the other ranks. And I think we're losing a whole lot of potential, not only recruitment, but also championships, as well as dollar value in terms of marketability by not attracting that. And I've had this discussion previously, I think when the current commissioner was at Texas Southern. And one of the main concerns was that, hey, there is that balance that you have to have. Title IX requires you to have so many sports. And so if you introduce men's soccer at HBCUs, you're likely going to have to take away from some of those other programs. And the concern was that might be a huge hurdle in terms of Title IX. And so that was the concern that was brought forward. But I do agree with you. I think that there's a huge potential there that is really, really untapped. And the unfortunate thing is that as long as it continues to go untapped, the other schools will continue to take advantage of that.
No doubt about it. So, we have women's soccer in the SWAC, but we don't have the men's soccer. And the only Division I program at this time is Howard University. At one time, we had Alabama A&M that had a rich tradition, as Howard University won an NAIA championship, NCAA Division II championship, but you had Alabama A&M that won an NCAA Division II championship. And so you have HBCUs that have won championships at all the levels. Actually, Howard's championship was the first championship that HBCU won in regards to Division I level championship, even beyond track and field. So that's just to give you a historical footprint of what that looks like moving forward. So I'm in agreement with you in terms of understanding what it means to grow your institution. We always talk about enrollment, and obviously you want to grow in terms of African Americans, increase that, but you also need to grow in other ways. Obviously, there's been a growth in terms of Hispanics coming into the institution, which is a significant move. But I also think there's a broader move in terms of understanding the international impact. Obviously, that has been difficult and has taken a significant impact in regards to Trump and some of his policies. And that's why I said it's important to understand as we open it up to vote, because you do not necessarily understand how a policy directly influences you, your family, but even more so your institutions that you love. And there's certainly been an impact from the international. It's impacted all institutions, but we know when things impact HBCUs, it tends to be more significant. It's that old framework that we hear about when America catches cold, Black America, African American America, Black people catch pneumonia, right? It's the same thing with our institutions. And so one thing that we talk about here is understanding individual pride, institutional pride, but understanding that institutional from a bigger perspective. So with that, let's go around here and let's have some fun. We did an educational component of it, and we can always bring it back if necessary comes up. But let's talk about it. We've heard this voice from Charles and Mike, and they obviously are able to jump in here at any time that they want in regards to, pushing the conversation forward. They may have had different thoughts. But let's start with you, Nana. You kind of opened up with how excited you were in regards to hearing that FAMU and Bethune-Cookman were joining the SWAC and how that opened up different things. But from your perspective, and then we're going to let you jump in here, Roy, to talk a little bit about this as well, in terms of what that looks like. Tell us why this becomes a significant news? Obviously you talk about the excitement, but from your global perspective, right, that you talk about, and so you can talk about it here regionally, obviously in the SWAC, but also from a global perspective, I want to know, what are your thoughts on this in terms of what does this mean for the SWAC?
It's definitely big. When you think about, obviously, the landscape of the big three sports, football, basketball, and baseball here in the United States, some would argue that the best talent comes from three states a lot of times, right? Texas, Florida, and California are the ones that are always mentioned. And so the fact that now you're going to have a direct competition between Texas schools and Florida schools, I think that's a great thing. Not just that, but also with the coming of the brother Deion Sanders to Jackson State also changes the landscape. You cannot forget that part of the history or part of that story as well. And so this is a very interesting time.
Stop.
Very,
Stop.
very.
Stop.
Oh,
Stop smiling,
oh,
Charles.
you
Stop it,
smiling.
Charles.
This is a very interesting time.
In California, he
Uh,
dropped his head. Then you find a way to say Deion with Mississippi and Jackson State, he rises his head. So perfect job. You can come on the show anytime. You know how to make
And so-
folks jump and move. You had Mike over here, stop. Yeah. This is good. This is good. See, global. I told you we are global.
We are more than happy and excited for that. But I think from a global perspective, again, these historical programs offer so much for the diaspora. There are students that are either entering graduate level programs that have entered some of these schools that we've talked about. FAMU has a great pharmacy school that is well renowned. So we are very, very familiar with that. We also know the history, obviously, of Bethune-Cookman. And so there's a lot of potential to now open up to the entire diaspora. But I think we also have to do a little bit more. And part of my work has been, and you and I have talked about this, is creating a pipeline of having real partnerships, student exchange programs, right? We took a look at schools such as Howard University, who has had a relationship with the University of Ghana for the last 40, 50 years. And so students from their African American studies are able to go and tour that not only Ghana, but the University of Ghana all the time. And they're also doing furthering their studies as well. So I see that as an opportunity, especially for within the SWAC, not only from a sporting perspective, but also from an academics perspective, to be able to market and to create further relationships. There are so many people don't know this, but the University of Ghana, for example, is one of the top 25 schools in all of Africa. All right. And so this is a very significant and interesting point to bring, because at that particular university, you have the Institute of African American Studies, you have the W.B. Du Bois Center. And by the way, W.B. Du Bois, I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but the brother was actually buried in Ghana. He lived in Ghana throughout his latter years, and was buried in Ghana. And so that's a significant story for a lot of us, and not just within Ghana, but also within all of West Africa. There's so many stories that need to be told. And to tie that into HBCUs, that history is, if we were to look at the numbers, again, at the graduate level, you'd be shocked to find out how many international students are entering the various law schools, the pharmacies, the business schools, and now even the computer science programs are being marketed towards the African students. So we think that this is a great segue in welcoming not only Bethune-Cookman, but also Florida A&M, and obviously historical programs such as Jackson State, Texas Southern, Prairie View. The rivalry is just about to take off into different. If it was ever big, I think it couldn't be bigger than now than before. So we're looking forward to it.
Karen Griffin says she's been to the University of Ghana. So you got people that are watching us that talks about that. You had Tyler Carr jumping here and asking that other question in regards, is that why they don't show halftime? So I'm going to shift it to you, Roy, to talk about from a media rights perspective, right? Why does the expansion of SWAC with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman become important from that perspective? We looked at it from a global perspective in terms of academic international sports. Opportunities may exist. So from a media right, if you would, content creation right, why is it important and then we'll let everybody kind of sum up their thoughts on the show today, and then we'll bring it to a close.
Okay. Well, I want to answer your question first, Doc, and then if you'll indulge me, I wanted to do one other quick thing after that. But the reality, like I said, I've been talking about the fact that FAMU and Bethune should have been in the SWAC years ago, because it is regionally. Sports are dictated by regional matchups and regional battles that you can create. When you look at companies such as Disney World, Universal Studios, any major theme park, they have what they call their drive time market. They usually focus on anybody that's within 10 to 8 hours of a drive from there. That is who they market to. And so when you really look at the proximity of the schools in the SWAC and talk about how FAMU and Bethune both fit into that, where you can end up with 6 or 7 schools who are right there within that 8 to 10 hour drive, because what that is that becomes a day trip for someone that they can get into. So now you're talking about creating the experience where when FAMU now gets to play Texas Southern, Jackson State, Grambling for homecoming, how that is going to impact you talk about the different programming that can come away from that. I mean, you're going to be able to follow people, man, and with the rights, it's going to the next thing that I think is going to happen is that the impact as far as it relates to in the stadium fans are going to go up. You know, we had a game against Southern. FAMU did last season. We had 28,000 people for homecoming. We had 25 for the Southern game. I mean, they maxed that. We filled our stadium. When we're talking, now that you're talking about that, and listen, we want to let y'all know that we Rattlers travel. We coming. We want to let y'all know that right now. We are coming. I don't know about Jackson,
nice,
Mississippi.
25,000. Way to go, 25.
Look at yeah. We got
go 25.
Yeah. So, hey, but you know what? For the first year, that's something we're going to take. But you don't know, Doc, I think it's going to be huge, and that impact is going to be created. And like I said, one of the things that we definitely want to do, and, like I said, this is one of the conversations that you and I have had offline that we definitely want to put out there to people. That cohesiveness, we are building that place for people to come to so that we can be that organization. We need to be the space to do it. And when we say that, that means that we want to work with anybody. We are willing to and talking about working with anyone who wants to get involved, who wants to help us, and who wants to see the growth of it. One of the taglines for our company is that the Jericho Broadcast Networks is that we are the future of urban media. It is our goal to change the world by changing the way that people of African descent see themselves, not just here in America, but across the diaspora. Because once we start seeing ourselves in different light, we will then start acting differently, and it will force everyone to treat us differently. We have an intrinsic power amongst ourselves that we can utilize where we don't even have to ask anyone for certain things. And, before I make that last point, I'm going to bring up a point that Dr. McClellan actually mentioned. When he talked about the Battle of the Bands, the SWAC now needs to go to no one to promote a Battle of the Bands, because they have 12 of the 15 top bands in black college football. And those are probably, realistically, some people would argue it's all the top 12,
Right.
that everybody else is after that. So we have that opportunity and that ability. To that end, I want to say one quick thing, just to let you know, Doc, I came out and I when I talk about not having an ego about what we're doing here, I came out with the fact I came to you and Mike and Charles about coming on and being a part of the Black College Sports Network. I never tried to say, hey, we're going to do this for you and do that, knowing that you guys were going to have a significant impact on the network. That's why I wanted to partner with you. I liked what I'd seen. With that being said, one of the things that we are still doing, we are in a competition, and right now Doc is in there. The HBCU Sports Lab is in second place. If you guys can, please go download our network app. That way you can follow us. If you're not online, you'll be able to watch all the shows live. Doc's show is actually going to replay, I believe, Doc, we said, Fridays at noon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, Friday at noon.
Friday at noon, it will replay on the Talk Vibe. Please go to our website, myjbn.com. Read about who we are, what we're trying to do. But when you download the app and you register, make sure that you select the HBCU Sports Lab as the show that brought you to the network. I believe you guys are number 7 or 8. I can't remember right now offhand, but look down that list and download it. Like I said, right now they are behind, and you're actually, you're trailing one of your frat brothers with Thoughts and Moments. Ellis Dean from the Beta New chapter. You guys and Miss Joyce Stevens, actually, who's a Spelmanite. So you guys are trailing them, but right now, we need your fans to step up with you. We're trying, once we get to that.
Yeah. Y'all know how I do it. I don't like to be second in anything. So the number 7, I can tell you right now. See, he trying to throw you off talking about all these other. The number 7 is 7 for a reason. See, that's what happens when you bring these Kappa Alpha Psi people together, Phi Beta Sigma, they throw things off. The number is 7 for a reason. Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. 7 founders, 7. Number 7. Go do us this wonderful favor and elevate us to number 1 where we're supposed to be, because we are the number 1 show on any network, but specifically BCSN. So let's make it happen. This number 2 stuff has to stop, and it needs to stop immediately. So give them that information again, because this just is not going to work like it's supposed to work. My JBN, my BCSN. Go there now, www.myjbn.com/support.html. You see it. Go down there, put number 7, download the app, and let's get this done. With that, let's have some closing remarks for the show.
And the app, last thing, Doc, the app is in both the Apple and the Google store. And you just type in my BCSN, and it'll be there. And he is number 7. So yes, they are number 7. They got theirs in there, but they getting it in.
Thank you. At least we are trailing another brother and a sister. So I'll take that. I understand that. But much respect. We're going to go with our second guest, my colleague, Texas Southern University, Nana Asare Athletics. In terms of that, let him have some closing thoughts. Then we're going to take it to Roy, and then we're going to let it go with my co-host to close it up, just giving our parting shots in regards to that. Go ahead.
So, thank you, Dr. Cavil, for the opportunity to join your audience today and be on this esteemed panel. The discussion was great. I'm always entertained, and not only that, but also informed when I'm a part of this particular program. I also want to tell everyone out there, obviously, if you're not registered to vote, go ahead and do so if it's not too late, and obviously make sure that you vote. This year has been challenging for a lot of different reasons, but this is not the time for us to sit back. We need to be very, very active in all fronts. For those of you that are near Houston, Texas Southern University is a voting site. And so I'm happy to report that I got mine in. And so you're welcome to do the same before the November 3rd voting date. With that being said, we're looking forward to more collaborations between not only HBCUs, but also the African diaspora in terms of uplifting not only our student culture, our academics, and also our athletics. I want to thank each and every one of the gentlemen for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you guys. And feel free to reach out anytime you need a different perspective. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Well said. As he said it, I'm going to start using that. I got mine in too. Go ahead, Roy, break it down.
All right, I wasn't going to do this, but I had to see you had the name up. But I want to make sure we get Mike that one big last view of the 1887 and understand that we are coming. The Rattlers are looking forward to being in the SWAC, you guys. Like I said, we know this is going to be an amazing relationship. I believe that, and Doc, you've heard me say in previous places, yep. Dr. Charles McClellan becoming the commissioner of the SWAC is the best thing that has happened to HBCU sports in the last 50 years. He is an innovator and someone who is going to move this product to a new space. And so we're excited to be someone who's working with him. But, like I said, we are this. We were the first Black-owned company to actually live stream HBCU sports. Starting off with the contract with the SIAC and the SWAC, our actually very first live broadcasted event that we did was the 2000 SWAC basketball championship game that was being held in Birmingham, Alabama. So we were really excited about that, and then just growing the relationship. And again, we want your help, we want your support to try to do this. All those other folks who are out there who have their own shows. if you're looking for a network home, we're here. We want to partner with you. We want to help try to do things that will help grow your space and engage you with some things. We've got a lot of things that are going to be coming up. That's one of the reasons we're pushing people and asking you guys to download the app. The next 2 months are going to be real interesting because when we hit 2021, we know that we're coming out with some great stuff, and you guys are going to. We know that you guys are going to enjoy it, and we're really looking forward to it. So download the app, come out and support. If you want to be a part of us, you can hit us up. Info@myjbn.com is the business email. Professor Asare, we definitely need to talk. I want to get to, we need to have some conversations to see about engaging you in some of the things that we've got going. And Doc, hey, like I said, man, we want to push you guys as far as we can push and pull each other. That's what it's all about, and making this product better so that we know that our HBCUs will be around for another 150 years and beyond.
Amen. Well said. Let me go to Charles. Go ahead, your parting shot.
Dr. Cavil, another tremendous show. Thank you, Dr. Asare, for coming on. Roy, one of the things I love about this show is not only do we talk athletics, but it's the information that is provided along with the entertainment, and it's a great mixture of all three. And it's another just tremendous show. Dr. Asare, you just fired me up in terms of want to learn more about Ghana. Roy, definitely to learn much more about the broadcast network elements and things of that nature. But Dr. Cavil, just thank you for this space for all of us HBCU sports fans to come in and learn about our schools and be entertained as well.
Thank you. Mike, my boy Mike, we go back
Yeah.
to the yard. Man,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd make it far without you. You just come on, follow me, young buck.
Absolutely, Doc. And in all seriousness, thank you, Dr. Asare, and thank you, Roy. Both of you, the passion that you bring to it really reinforces the passion that I have. Not only the talk of the diaspora as well. So thank you for educating the masses as well. Now that, Roy, you have a shirt on and it has the number 1886. Keep in mind that Prairie View A&M was formed in 1876. That would make y'all little brother, right? If you do the math.
They had to get it
right. Prairie View A&M is the second oldest institution in the state of Texas. If you think about it, it's actually in the state constitution. I'm just saying, just throwing some facts out there. I'm not trying to be mean. All I'm talking about is what I'm talking about. So, so with the African.
When is the first game that we playing against y'all?
we like to talk noise, and of course now y'all have the third best band in the SWAC. Okay, so. But Doc, thank you very much. We go back 30 years, and we talked about this day and all of this. You have a lot of characters on the show, and some of them just don't know their true history. They went to FAM, they went there for a season. They feel they're the best. Now there was a business decision made, and all of a sudden now it's all about that orange and green school. And then all of a sudden there's this little school in Jackson. They get a celebrity, and all of a sudden it's all about Jackson State. So I just let the noise talking begin, because that is what the SWAC is about. Remember, didn't you hear Dr. Asare talking? It's about culture. It's about music. It's about the food. But it's also about smack talking. And I'm dishing it out.
I see it. This is good. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and your colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU of College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, as we talk about this global perspective of the sporting HBCU diaspora. We have Professor Nana Asare as well as Roy Eavins, the co-founder of BCSN. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. We look forward to next week as we will discuss the latest news in the lab Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course, lecture,
Dismissed.
YT Productions.
Yeah.